Where do successful business owners in Canada want to be?
I'd say the Okanagan.
100%. According to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, Kelowna was just ranked in April as the top major city in Canada for entrepreneurs. Why do you think Kelowna got ranked as the top entrepreneur city?
Well, I mean, it makes sense for me, right? As a business owner, I've always wanted to start a business, and coming out to Kelowna as a kid, I spent a lot of time at Peachland. I loved it, right? I could just go on boating, hanging on the beach, spending time, and coming from Calgary, having just way longer summers out here. So I feel, spoiled to be able to, resonate with that childhood memory. Whereas I think it was 2017 or 2018, right when I met you, actually, was the year that I moved out here. And I moved out here as saw an opportunity in small business, which was the reason why I came out here. There's a long story there. It's not the business I'm part of. And, there was a lot of learning lessons through that. But being able to be out here in the Okanagan with a like-minded entrepreneurial type of city that is in one of the most beautiful spots in Canada, I think is probably the reason why that's happening, right?
Yeah.
People see opportunity, they see growth. Like, what do you think, Steve? Why do you think people come out here?
I mean, you mentioned there that there's all these other like-minded entrepreneurs. And I think it's becoming that hub where you can do that and you get the best of both worlds. You have the small town feel in some ways, but it is still a major city. It was ranked the top major city for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
But you still get the balance there, and it's fantastic.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
What do you think about the city itself allows for the growth of small businesses or entrepreneurs to start them up?
That's an interesting question. And for me, it was, certain groups that I was a part of. Again, one of the groups that I met you through, things like SLN, BNI are great. And they're in every city. But what I found here is there is a bit of a younger group. Like, for example, my dad's been part of EO. It used to be called YEO. Now he's in his, late 60s. Mm-hmm. So it's no longer YEO. Yeah. But he, he met such a great core group of people that he loved. And he still works with them now 40 years later.
Yeah.
And so what I think we find in Kelowna is there's a retirement kind of, demographic. And then there's also that young demographic that is starting to grow rapidly. And out of my friend group in Kelowna, I'd say, almost 50 to 60% are business owners.
Yeah.
Right. And they have either a side hustle or a side gig. They have that founder's vision that they want to grow their dream. And that's what we have more often here than we see in other places that I've lived in my life.
Yeah, it's friendly for the founders who have those visions, but also you come here because you want to raise your family, because it's a lot more accessible for a lot of those things that you can't get in some of the other major cities for your family, access to different services, opportunities to just travel, adventure. We can actually get across the city super quick.
100%. Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So for you, Steve, as obviously you're a family man and you have lots of friends that are in different businesses in Kelowna. What would you say is what's keeping people in Kelowna? You say the services, you say, I'd love for you to elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, what's keeping people here is the city in itself and the community. You can work and grow things together. You have all 4 seasons. You can adventure and do things. Mm-hmm. You can get an actual backyard as a business owner who's just starting up a lot of the time. People down in Vancouver, you can't get a backyard without going into no. 2-3 million at least for the home, right? I mean, it's more accessible for that here. And when you're starting a business, that's so important because you're already stretching yourself, investing a lot of your funds into your businesses and stuff, right? So for business owners, that's friendly, but also just the lifestyle that we have here is very desirable. Now, the thing that we need to do is give those business owners even more services so they can grow faster. Mm-hmm. We need to tailor what we're doing in terms of the professional services to small and mid-sized businesses so that they can grow. When we try to provide the services in the way of the major cities like Vancouver, Ontario, or things like that, where they're built to service the really large corporations, well, those small, mid-sized business owners aren't getting serviced the way that they need to.
100%, right? And that's why I love, what you've built, what we're building here at Founders Family. And for me, as a small business owner myself, it was the reason why I loved the idea, mm-hmm. right? The whole idea behind that. So
yeah. As a small business owner yourself, like, what do you see being benefits when you have that integrated team in your corner?
Well, for me, like, if I look through the last, 6 years, so the business is coming up. Actually, I think it just passed its anniversary a couple days ago. So we started on May 20th of 2020. So now we're obviously 6 years in. And in that first 2 to 3 years, we saw some really exponential growth. There was some timing, some luck. I was very excited, but also got humbled in many ways that we won't dive into. But either way, seeing all the different professional services offered, I think I went through 3 or 4 accounting firms because at certain firms, I was looked at as a number and I was just literally a number. They saw that my bank account was growing and didn't understand my business as a whole, didn't discuss anything with anybody else that was part of the professional services I was receiving, and tried to sell me on different things like really large trusts, things that, expanding to the US with other US lawyers at $800 an hour. Like there was all these services that got pitched to me, but nothing was done as a collective, right? Mm-hmm. So when we started discussing a fractional family office, for me as a business owner that owns a business doing more than 7 figures, but at the time we saw big dips in growth and then really exciting years up and down, right? So it's like a roller coaster of being a founder. And so when I can have somebody that's in my corner to help me ride out those times when I'm like, we might be going bankrupt, we might be done, to, okay, we haven't had this amount of capital in the business, what should we do with it? And to have that as opposed to just getting sold on a service from whether that be your mortgage broker thinks you should buy a new house, your real estate agent thinks you should do so, or your financial advisor says throw it all on the S&P 500 or on GameStop. Or you have, your lawyer's like, well, we could expand into other markets. But when they all kind of talk and your accountant understands your books like through and through, that's the idea that I love. And that's why I became a client of our own business here.
100%.
Right? Because it just makes sense.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned they saw dollars, they saw money, and they started pitching the trust, which in a lot of circumstances, we do those. Like from the law firm under our business, we implement those and we recommend them. But it's why we're recommending it. Is it the right thing right now for this person? And you should be looking at it so circumstantial and not just, well, you're making this much, so now we can probably set the trust up, because there's so much more to what that individual, their family, their plans and everything like that are, that all needs to be going. And in order to see that, you have to have all those professional advisors talking.
Yeah.
But when they're all at different locations, they're not going to, because the cost of that would just be astronomical. It's not
100%.
possible.
Well, and that was what frustrated me, was the understanding of my business. They didn't ask a single question, right? It was just, well, if you want to, be able to kind of, there was a little bit of tax planning involved. Was the goal. That was it. There was no questions of where's the business growth. For me, I understood that in the water sports industry that my e-commerce brand was in, and golf and bikes and a lot of outdoor rec exploded during COVID. And that's great. But I did have an understanding. This was not my first business. I've failed other businesses and learned that, when things are really good, that's not going to last forever. Right. And that was more than the truth with kind of the COVID bubble of outdoor rec. And there was no questions about that. So that's where, for you and for our business here, where there's way more of an understanding of like the true scope of the business, what's happening, what's going on. Your accountant will actually have a full understanding of your profit and loss, your balance sheet. And, we can have projections, discuss all of these things. So if you want to save up to buy that new home for your family, or you want to go on that vacation, or you want to, invest and max out your TFSA, or all the different the ways you can spend and use your revenue or net profit, is kind of what we want to build here. And that's where I see the biggest game changer for us.
Yeah. What's most important to you, your family? Do you want that vacation home because having a place up at Big White or things like that is so important for your family time? Or are you more about, no, that's not as important to me, I want to travel and things like that? Well, then you can take those funds and invest them elsewhere. But, you can get that full picture advising. Whereas if you talk to, as you mentioned, just your realtor or about, should we get a vacation place up at Big White? They're going to say yes. But if you talk to your financial advisor about that, they're going to say no. But neither of those people are truly trying to understand why you might want one or why not.
Yeah, no, 100%.
You mentioned talking about what you've done for businesses and, your background in education, stuff like that. You started your own business. But when you started that, what was your experience as an accountant, or your training? Did you have any schooling in being an accountant, any schooling in being a lawyer, anything like that?
No, absolutely nothing, right? And that's school of hard knocks,
Yeah.
right? You know, and in previous years, there was other businesses, like I said, that some were just not the right industry to be in. Some I failed by, just not knowing business well enough. So, really learning by like, dragging your ego along with you to continue to learn, fail, get back up, fail, get back up. And so, this was not my, I think this was probably my third or fourth business, fourth actually. And when I started it, it was the same thing where there was a lot of excitement. There's always excitement, right? And it's like, oh, what do we do? And, I see a lot of mistakes that business owners, make when they start because there's so much excitement that they'll spend, $30,000 on a new website and $10,000 on a new logo. And, when they spend all their money and it's really exciting. And then, it's like, okay, where'd all the cash go? And so there was a few learning lessons that I had done, but diving into the accounting side and like properly looking at your books. And, now I look at my books like once a month. I go over my profit and loss, my balance sheet, and if I want to look at them more often than that, I of course do, but I had no training, right? And so, even when, setting up different partnerships or looking at production. So obviously when we deal with a cost of goods sold, we're in a product business as opposed to a services business. So we have to project and see like how much cash flow we have and how much we can spend right now and what we should put in, kind of the retained earnings and how much we can take out in dividends. And like I was new to all that, right? And again, I learned the hard way. In the first 2 years of business, we grew exponentially. It was exciting. I would like to attribute that to a little bit of luck, a little bit of timing, a really good business partner, and then also having the opportunity to grow and learn from previous failures, right? But all the other professional stuff, I had no idea. I lean on all these other different, I guess I would call them like a consultant. You talk to your financial advisor, you talk to your lawyer, and they were all completely separate. So when shit was going on in the business that I was really stressed about, my financial advisor is like, well, don't take your money out. But they also make they make money on my money. So why would they recommend that, right? Thankfully, that changed. I moved to one of my very close friends who was doing financial advising. But at that point, the business was struggling. So it's just all these learning lessons that have taught me what I know now. But if I was to, from the beginning, have a business like what Founders Family is offering that says, hey, these are like the issues that we've seen. These are the things that people kind of waste their money, almost like a business startup consultant that could also save me money in incorporating and or buying a home or moving funds. Like all of those things would be amazing. So I think that's, for you as a lawyer, Steve, like what do you see in a lot of businesses that are starting up? Like you see that raw excitement, but I'm sure there's a lot of other issues.
Oh, totally. And when I was at a large law firm and I was acting as the lawyer helping startup businesses, I was only seeing part of the picture. So I was, and the other advisors are always advising what truly trying to advise in the best interest of the client. But it's hard to do that when you only see a certain picture, one little part of the full picture that you're advising on. And so you can tell them how to maybe structure based off of the legal protection and the stuff that the client tells you. But the client is usually a new business owner or mid-sized growing. They don't know all the other stuff that maybe they should be bringing up and discussing with you to give you the full picture for the largest planning scope so that you can truly make sure you're setting them up in the right way. Just an example for that, we had some clients come over to us and a lawyer had set them up, they incorporated them, structured them. And I'm sure that those lawyers tried to do it in the right way for the client based off of the client's best interest. But they incorporated it with the spouse and the business owner who was starting it, both having ownership in this company almost evenly, a little less than evenly.
Okay.
And what they didn't know was the other spouse already had another business going because they didn't ask the questions for that. And that business wasn't incorporated. And so they didn't get this larger picture. And then they didn't dive even deeper to understand these two companies are in totally different industries, totally different businesses. Well, when we incorporate his business now and you have hers, if they have ownership over 25% in the other one's company, they are subject to one small business tax deduction.
Okay.
Whereas if they have two different companies and have less than 25% of any class of shares, they can each claim small business tax deduction. Up to $500,000, you're at a much lower tax break.
That's very interesting because that's the, I actually came into a scenario in that when I worked with my brother-in-law and my sister, and the accountant at the time didn't explain that to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I was put into as a consultant because it was my sister that I was working for. I wasn't an employee. I was a separate business. And again, I had no idea. I was doing some consulting mainly for them, right? And it ended up being full time for them. But it was called arm's length or non-arm's length. And the accountant said that I have to pay this tax based on their tax deduction. And they made just over $500,000 in net profit that year. And things ended up changing after the fact, but I paid this tax
Mm-hmm.
and I only made like 60 grand that year. I didn't
Yeah.
make big dollars that year at all. And I was paying, a 27%, commercial tax
Yeah.
on that. And I also, paid myself out of that. I was living on that money. And so this accountant didn't tell me that whatsoever. I didn't had nobody to rely on for that conversation. And I paid a lot of money out. The new accountant that, I've been working with for years before this, he ended up getting that money back,
Mm-hmm.
right? He's like, Jaeger, you overpaid, but that took years,
Mm-hmm.
almost 3 to 4 years, right? And so I was living pretty low,
Yeah.
like money wise for that. So there's that. That's interesting that you say that, and that's actually something that I didn't know.
Well, and it's unfortunate because there's a lot of accountants who service small businesses that don't know these things because they're not tax specialist accountants
Hmm.
necessarily, right? And so that's why it's so important that you get the resources to the tax accountant specialists with your small business accountant specialist, with your lawyer who's your general corporate lawyer, with the tax specialist. And it doesn't have to be the same person. But if you try to get that from the large firms, it's way too expensive for your
Yeah,
small business owner because a tax specialist lawyer is going to charge hourly and their tax specialist rate is going to be about $800 an
right.
hour, if not more.
Yeah,
And you can't afford that for an $800 hour for him to do the research and tell you that opinion because you're too worried about it. When really it should be no one because you should have the team that can integrate this and give you that advice fairly quickly by just bouncing it off one another.
100%. No, I love that.
So, have you heard of this idea called the founder's paradox?
No.
So, the idea of the founder's paradox is that you start this business because you want a lot more of your own free time. You're able to spend time with your family, run your own business, have people manage it. But then the reality is as you start that business, you end up doing so much of it that you're doing way more
Hmm.
than if you hadn't started your own business. You end up spending all this time trying to grow it, build it, put the team in place, everything like that. And it's your baby, you spending time on it. So that whole idea of having that extra time to spend with your family, to take care of your health, your physical health, your mental health, all those things, you lose that time and you're sacrificing it because you're so focused on growing this business. And it's hard to then find that balance point.
Yeah, well, I guess I haven't heard of that exact term, but I guess I've lived that
Yeah.
exact term. So, yeah, no, Steve, if I, can share a little bit of reality behind my life of building the business, it's now we're in a good place, and I'm very thankful for that. But it's taken years where like, we started off in a really quick growth. We're very excited about that. And but it was during COVID, and then boom, we got slapped with massive delays on product. Like we weren't getting product for 9 months, right? And dealing with thousands of upset customers,
Yeah.
and we were always good about it, refunds, and we'll take care of you. But oh my God, was that stressful? I was waking up every night checking the bank account, and this was supposed to be fun,
Yeah.
right? And it
You
turned
built it because you were excited about it. You were passionate. It was going to be a fun thing to
yeah.
do.
And it was, the numbers looked good because everybody was buying that product at that time, but we couldn't get the product.
Yeah.
And so it turned into this massive stress. And then after that bubble of like, okay, sales, 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 we finally get the product there, we fulfill our customers. And then after that, we come into the kind of the bottom, right? So we were at the mountain peak and we came into the bottom of that roller coaster ride of sales slowed down dramatically, right? So come from 2020, 2021 was great, 2022 was great, 2023 the world opened up again, right? Or I believe it was actually at the end of 2022, and so we started to see this massive dip in sales. So now I'm working 10, 12-hour days trying to build the business. My wife is crushing it beside me. We're working so hard. We're going to every trade show we possibly can be, going from Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, Toronto, back, like we're everywhere. And we're trying to build the online side heavily. And we're seeing like our cost per acquisition, our sales, everything's like just dropping. And I got to the point in 2024 where I sat down with my accountant and I said, dude, I don't know. I'm working my ass off. I'm making no money. Our costs have gone up. things have gone up in regards to expenses in the business. And now I pay my bills, I pay my GST, I pay my taxes, I pay all my, fees that I need to whatever services that we're using in the business, but I'm making zero money. I said, is this even worth it? Are we going bankrupt? Like I was actually hit the point where I was like rock bottom. It wasn't a great spot, right? And this was all started from excitement. This is all started from like, hey, we're gonna do it. We're gonna make some money. We're gonna do it. And it started with extreme excitement. I'm like, holy shit, we've never had this much money in our account. 2 years later, I'm like, holy shit, we have no money in our account. So it's like, okay. And I remember like tearing up with my wife and being like, honey, I think we should sell the business for pennies on the dollar. And then thankfully I have a great business partner, Nick. And I had a chat with him and said, dude, like I'm going to sell to one of our competitors. I'm done. Like I'm making no money. I'm working too hard. I'm going to go get a 9 to 5. Right. Yeah. So it's like that grass is always greener mentality. And after that, we basically made a deal with Nick in our production facility where things did work out. We got a better cost and we were able to dig ourselves out of hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. And now we're in a much better place. But holy shit, Steve, it was a ride. So the founder's paradox. Okay, I get it. Yeah. That makes sense.
It's a real thing.
And for you get to kind of deal with so many different businesses. Like, do you feel like you see that in a lot of businesses that are freshly starting? Like when you do a new incorporation, like how do you feel on the lawyer side of it?
100%. When a business owner is starting, they're starting because they're passionate about something that they know, something that they can do. And so often they don't realize so much of the other stuff that they're going to have to do with being a business owner. The management of the financials, the legal, all the agreements and everything like that. That's not stuff that they are used to. And they end up spending so much extra time on that stuff that the fun stuff becomes reduced, and the thing that they were passionate about, the business of whatever it be, starting a coffee shop or starting a gym, whatever it is, a small business, though, that's the thing that they love. It wasn't all that other stuff that they started that business for. And they end up spending so much time on that stuff, and then they don't even realize where all that time leakage is going to all these different things, and then they forget why they actually loved starting the business to begin with.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's why, looking at the kind of the consulting side of it, that certain businesses and of course Founders Family will be able to offer, it's exciting because for me, again, that founder's paradox is a real thing. You're so fired up, you're so excited. I've seen it time and time again. I've done it myself before where it's excitement to failure. And if you had even a booklet that was like, hey, take these steps and make sure you're watching for this, it'd be super helpful. But just like life, there's no written law on exactly what to do, right?
Well, and you see all these things on Instagram, TikTok, whatever it be, of these jokes of, oh, I married a CEO, an entrepreneur, and so we get to now work from, and it just shows videos of this husband or wife or whoever's the person who owns the business on their phone while they're on vacation the whole time. They built their own business hoping to be able to travel all the time, but while they're traveling, they're constantly working.
Yeah. And that's kind of the battle. And I think that's something that can be solved. And to a certain extent, some people just love working. Yeah. Right.
And you want to work while you're traveling. You want to be able to travel and work, but you want to also be able to check out of it at points so you can enjoy yourself. You can be present. When you start to sacrifice your time with your family while you're on that vacation, or you just start to sacrifice your own health because you're not getting your workouts in, you're not able to go see your therapist, any of those things that you need to take care of yourself, then what's worth about it?
Yeah. It's like truly, it's cliche to say, but like that work-life balance.
Yeah.
Right. And how do you actually find that? What is that?
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because some people are like, balance is a myth. You have to be all in. You have to have that Kobe Bryant Black Mamba mindset.
Yeah.
And I think you can succeed like that, but very few people are going to be Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
Isn't it better to succeed to a high level with a team around you? I mean, think of how many people succeeded with Kobe Bryant and everything like that.
100%. Right. Yeah. Finding that growth along with a little bit of love for life.
Yeah.
Right. That's why we're here.
That's what I want. I want to be, succeeding, winning, but I want to be able to enjoy it and not sacrifice that time with my kids and win at life overall. Because to me, the true idea of wealth goes way beyond financial success or your business success in that way of financial. It goes so much more into the knowledge, the time you spend with your family, your relationships, your actual just enjoyment of life and the way that you can pass that on to your children, your family. That's true wealth.
Yeah. Well, that's something you and I talked about like over a year ago. And I took it to heart. I really did because with my wife and now my daughter who's, 11 months going on a year in June. I love her to death and I love my wife. Like we're best friends. We love spending time together. And I did notice, over the last 6 years, like at nighttime, I'm working. My phone's always on and I'm always yapping to people and I'm always doing deals. I'm always, an email. Oh, customer called in. Like I got to speed to lead. I got to close this
Hmm.
deal, and I still have like a lot of respect for that hustle mentality because it can get you to a good place. But now where the business is growing and we have some people on the team that can kind of jump on some stuff when they want to as well, it leaves more time for me after 6 p.m. to put my phone away
Yeah.
and actually hang out with my daughter. And that's been something that's huge. And again, I'm grateful because I'm lucky enough to be able to have that. Right. And a lot of people aren't. And some people just love working. Right. Like you get that CEO. I don't know if you've seen the video online where Buddy's chatting on a call. I think he's on like some big news outlet and his daughter walks in and he's like, get the hell out. I'm just like, and it's funny. The nanny comes running in and she's like, oh shit.
Oh, where she drags
Yeah,
the kid out.
she
Yeah,
drags the
yeah,
kids out. And, I kind of want to be the opportunity where it's like, hi, honey, I'm busy right now,
yeah.
but I also understand it was a massive news outlet, quite comical. But either way, that mentality of like that, having that growth, but also, living your life,
Yeah.
doing what you love. And if what you love is working,
Yeah.
then hell yeah. Like Alex Hormozy, he just pushes working 24/7. Like
Yeah.
that's his thing. Right. And that's, I love a lot of the stuff he says. I really do. He's built hundreds of millions of dollars worth of businesses and sold them and, acquisition.com now and all that good stuff. And, so I like following some of these guys, but I definitely take a piece of what certain people say.
Yeah, yeah.
You
You can
know?
you can always see and respect what people are doing who love to work and,
Yeah.
and the absolute that grind mentality, make it to the top at all costs. That's great, respectable. You can take that. But for me, it's about how do you take pieces of that with being able to stay true to yourself, stay true to what you want of your family, your health, your overall wealth. To
Yeah.
me, that's the true goal. And before I was married, when I was single, I was grinding at the law firms. I was just grinding away, and I built an amazing practice real quick as a young lawyer and rose up. But it was so hard once I had the family to be able to scale back and be present with the family because that idea and that way of going became ingrained in my brain, and that became my automatic way of going. I had to take time to reverse that so that I could live in more of a balanced state because all I knew how to do was go at 1,000 miles an hour since I was like in university playing basketball and getting my undergrad degree, off to law school, go at 1,000 miles an hour and succeed. And once you've made it, you'll slow down.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to slow down once I made it because I was only used to going at 1,000 miles an hour. It was impossible then to find that balance point.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Like my worst, waking up and checking my emails first thing, right?
Yeah.
Get out of bed and check your emails. It's like, well, maybe I don't need that, immediate either dopamine hit or cortisol spike or stress or whatever comes through those emails, right? And now it's, I've just recently been able to, because you see all these things online of my morning routine, right? And again, it's kind of frustrating
Yeah.
watching it sometimes where it's like, hey, well, I don't got 3 hours in the morning to like put my face in an ice bowl and, go for a sauna and then go for a walk. I don't have a sauna, like all these things where, just this morning I was able to wake up, spend like 3 minutes journaling, just writing like, hey, I'm really grateful for X, Y, and Z. I want to do these 3 things today. And then I did a 10-minute yoga, got my workout in, and then I was able to make my 9 o'clock meeting. And like that's
And in between there, you probably had your face in a diaper as you were changing.
yeah, pretty much, right?
Not an ice bowl. You had
The
a full
diaper.
face full of
Yeah.
nice wake up diaper. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the goal. And it's again, it just gets so glorified online where it's like, oh, like you can do this and do this. And I'm working from my laptop in Thailand looking at elephants. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, like, you know what? Let's make this real and let's make it attainable.
Yeah.
Right. It's really how I view it because it's a struggle finding that balance, like you said, with your family and making that happen. But again, Steve, I have mad props to you because you've helped me along the way find that and feel okay about it. Because I used to just wake up and when I was working, I feel good because I'm building a
Yes.
business. But then you do burn out.
You feel great and you crave that. And that's the reason you don't know how to pull back is because all you know is how to feel rewarded from that success.
Yeah.
And you got to keep going to feel that reward.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough.
It is tough. Absolutely. So my name is Jaeger. I'm a co-founder here at Founders Family. I'm the vice president of business development, and kind of what I offer here is really business strategy and business consulting. Reason why I say that is my failures are on my back. I've failed several businesses, and now I've been able to build a few successful businesses. And I think, you get knocked down, you get back up again. That's what I offer, is just the mindset of properly building and growing a business after learning so many different things.
I'm Steven Morrison. I'm founder and visionary of Founders Family Wealth and Health. And I've worked as a lawyer. I'm a registered sub-mortgage broker. I did my accounting undergrad with a major in finance after I graduated. And what I did was I worked with all these large businesses. I worked then in the private sector after I left the law firm, worked with private equity. I worked with so many family offices. I worked in development. And I saw, working with these family offices, the benefits of having that integrated family office structure, but bringing it to the small and mid-sized business owners. And I had the connections in all the professional service industries and understanding of them all to help integrate it and bring it in a fractional style to your small and mid-sized business owner.